Thank you for joining us today for the Introduction to Secondary Transition Planning webinar. My name is Lori Chestnut, and I'm the Secondary Transition Program Specialist at the Oklahoma State Department of Education, Special Education Services. This webinar will focus on the secondary transition requirements under the Individual with Disabilities Education Act and Oklahoma state policy. The agenda for today will include the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and Oklahoma state policy, Indicator 13 checklist, and the requirements for a secondary transition plan. This webinar will be recorded and posted in EdPlan under the Documents on the State tab. It will also be posted on the Oklahoma State Department of Education Special Education Services Secondary Transition webpage. The purposes of IDEA include ensuring that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education, FAPE, that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. So this means that all the skills that we teach our students in school should prepare them for life after high school. According to Oklahoma state policy, secondary transition services must be in effect at the beginning of the student's 9th grade year or by age 16, whichever occurs first. This means that the transition plan must be developed during the student's 8th grade year. That will ensure that services are in place the first day of 9th grade. The Indicator 13 checklist is designed to assist educators in meeting the IDEA compliance regulations, as well as gaining knowledge of acceptable best practices for students of transition age. The Indicator 13 components are built into EdPlan as rules of completion. When our office monitors files, we are using this checklist to determine compliance. We will cover these components in this webinar today. Number 1, are there appropriate measurable post-secondary goals in the areas of education training, employment, and where appropriate, independent living skills? And in Oklahoma, we also consider community participation. 2, are the post-secondary goals updated annually? 3, is there evidence that the measurable post-secondary goals were based on age-appropriate transition assessments? 4, are there transition services in the IEP that will reasonably enable the student to meet his or her post-secondary goals? 5, do the transition services include courses of study that will reasonably enable the student to meet his or her post-secondary goals? 6, are there annual IEP transition goals related to the student's transition services needs? 7, is there evidence that the student was invited to the IEP team meeting where transition services were discussed? 8, if appropriate, is there evidence that a representative of any participating agency that is likely to be responsible for providing or paying for transition services was invited to the IEP team meeting with the prior consent of the parent? So again, IEP teams must invite the student to the IEP team meeting. And if the student is not able to attend, the team must ensure that the child's preferences and interests are considered. It's also important to make sure that you're collaborating with agencies such as the Department of Rehabilitation Services and inviting them with plenty of time for them to attend to IEP team meetings. And remember that you must get prior consent of a parent or a student who is 18 before you invite them and they attend the meeting. So a very important part of transition planning is age-appropriate transition assessment. Students must take age-appropriate transition assessments each year. Transition assessment is an ongoing process of collecting data on the individual's strengths, what they are good at doing, preferences, how they learn best and what they choose, interest, what they like to do, and needs, what skills they need to be taught, and these will become the annual transition goals. Results of current transition assessments are an important part of the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, which describes the level at which students are working academically and functionally. Transition assessment results provide an indication of students' progress towards reaching their post-secondary goals. And again, we use them to develop the annual transition goals. We recommend that students are assessed in all areas, including education and training, employment, independent living, and community participation to help ensure our students live a good life. All students must be assessed in the areas of education, training, and employment. Post-secondary goals. Post means after. So that means that post-secondary goals occur after high school, and they must be updated annually. All students must have post-secondary goals in the areas of education, training, and employment. Independent living and community participation, if appropriate. It is appropriate to address independent living and community participation goals when the student is participating in the alternate assessment and when results from assessments indicate that the student has needs in these areas. Post-secondary goals must be measurable. They are measurable if they answer the following questions. Where will I learn after high school? Where will I work after high school? Where will I live after high school? How will I participate in the community after high school? It's important that the students have input and assist in writing their post-secondary goals, which is why in Ed Plan they are written in first person. Examples of post-secondary goals. Education training post-secondary goal. Upon graduation from high school, Dawson will receive on-the-job training in the retail or the service industry. Employment. Upon graduation from high school, Dawson will work at a retail store part-time. Independent living. After graduation, Dawson will live at home and participate to the maximum extent possible in his daily routines, feeding, dressing, bathing, etc. Community participation. Upon graduation from high school, Dawson will join an organization or club for social leisure activities in his community. And notice that these are written saying that Dawson will do these things or I will do these things. So we want to stay away from words like might or is thinking about, and we want to stick with the student will do this. That makes it measurable. Next, we're going to talk about annual transition goals. So let's compare post-secondary goals and annual transition goals. Post-secondary goals are based upon student strengths, interests, and preferences identified through transition assessments. Again, they occur after high school. Annual transition goals are based on needs identified through transition assessments. They address what skills the student will learn this academic school year to demonstrate movement towards reaching each post-secondary goal. Neither the post-secondary nor the annual goals are mere statements of passing a class with a certain grade or to complete requirements for high school graduation. So remember, special education is all about that specially designed instruction, and it's individualized based on the unique needs of the student. So just making a statement saying that, you know, Johnny will pass all classes to get his high school diploma, that's not individualized enough. So all students are trying to pass their classes and earn their high school diploma. So we want to make sure that it's individualized and that it's based on those results from the assessments. Using results from the assessments, students and IEP teams can answer these questions to assist them in developing annual transition goals that will help them achieve each of their post-secondary goals. What skills do I need to learn this year to go to school where I want? What skills do I need to learn this year to work where I want? What skills do I need to learn this year to live where I want? And what skills do I need to learn this year to participate in my community? Annual transition goals must include education and training and employment for all students. Students may also have annual goals in independent living and community participation. Students need annual goals that align with each of their post-secondary goals. And for our students who are assessed by alternate achievement standards, or the OAP, they must also have short-term objectives and benchmarks. Annual transition goals need to be measurable and include the following: the condition, the application of skills or knowledge. Behavior, identifies the performance being monitored. Describes the materials and environment necessary to complete the goal or goals. Criterion, how much, how often. We want to make sure that we are monitoring progress with our annual transition goals, just like we monitor progress for our academic goals. Here are some examples of annual transition goals. So for education and training, for Dawson, remember his post-secondary goal was that he would receive on-the-job training in the retail or the service industry. So his annual transition goal in education and training is going to be After receiving instruction in choice making and self-awareness, Dawson will communicate his choices and feelings using PECS or with a physical gesture without verbal prompting 8 out of 10 opportunities. Objective 1, when given 2 to 4 choices at meal times, Dawson will choose his preferred food items without verbal prompting 8 out of 10 times. Objective 2, when given the choice of an activity, Dawson will gesture or use his communication board to make a choice based upon his interest with minimal verbal prompting with 80% accuracy. Next, we have his employment annual transition goal. So the post-secondary employment goal was, upon graduation from high school, Dawson will work at a retail store part-time. So his annual employment goal that's going to help him be able to do what he wants to do after high school, to be able to work at that retail store. After meal times and bathroom breaks, Dawson will check his appearance in a mirror to clean his face, brush his hair, and check his clothes without prompting with 100% accuracy. Objective 1. Using a mirror, Dawson will identify if he needs grooming or not to his face, hair, or clothes 4 out of 5 given opportunities. Objective 2. After instruction in using a hairbrush, Dawson will brush his hair to make it visually acceptable 4 out of 5 times. Objective 3. After eating or drinking, Dawson will clean his face with a napkin or wet wipe and check for cleanliness in the mirror 5 out of 5 times. Independent living annual transition goal example. So the post-secondary goal was that Dawson would live at home and participate to the maximum extent possible in his daily routines. So his annual independent living goal is, when presented with a meal, Dawson will eat food, not including liquid or mushy foods, and drink with minimal physical prompts 8 out of 10 times. Objective 1. Using adaptive utensils, Dawson will feed himself 5 to 8 different types of food with minimal physical prompting 4 out of 5 opportunities. Objective 2. Using an adaptive drink device, Dawson will drink independently without spilling 100% of the time. Objective 3. When given finger foods, Dawson will feed himself independently 100% of the time. Community participation annual transition goal example. So the post-secondary goal was that Dawson will join an organization or club for social or leisure activities in the community. So the annual goal for community participation is, after researching different local organizations and clubs on the internet with help from a teacher, parent, or paraprofessional, Dawson will choose 3 local organizations or clubs that fit his interest. Objective 1. Dawson will show preferences for activities, items, and locations using PECS or physical gestures 4 out of 5 times. Objective 2. While searching the internet with help, Dawson will indicate his interest in certain tasks, items, locations, and activities with prompting weekly. So hopefully through these examples, that will help you see a connection between the post-secondary goals and the annual transition goals. Next, we'll talk about the course of study. The course of study should identify the specific courses that a student will take, whether special education or general education, that directly support progress towards those post-secondary and annual transition goals. The course of study needs to be updated annually, and if the post-secondary goals change, then the course of study may need to change or will need to change. Okay, so when you're creating the course of study with your students, you need to consider the post-secondary goals, their interests, strengths, and needs, and students can answer these questions. What classes and activities do I need to prepare me to learn, work, and live where I want after leaving school? And what extra activities do I need? And this is a course of study example for SpongeBob. So this is not for Dawson, this is a different one for SpongeBob, and I borrowed this from a training that we had last year with the OU Zero Center. So here we have SpongeBob's courses that he will take his junior year. So he's going to have English 3 in the lab, Algebra 2 General, World History Lab, Biology General, and then electives. And we're listing out the specific titles of the electives, not just putting electives. So he's taking a life skills class and ag power and technology. These electives will help SpongeBob interact with concepts he will need in order to be in the tourism industry, and his core classes will help him earn the credits towards graduation. So his senior year, he's going to take English, English 4, math modeling, geography, marine ecology, and then his electives will be family and consumer science and hospitality. Again, those core classes are going to help him earn credits towards graduation. The family and consumer science class will provide SpongeBob with necessary self-care skills to live independently after high school. And the hospitality course aligns with SpongeBob's career interest after high school. So again, we want to see an alignment between the courses that our students are taking and their post-secondary goals. So in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it talks about transition services, and districts have responsibilities to provide transition services to all students. Transition services are based on the child's needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, and interests, and include instruction, related services, community experiences, employment and other post-school adult living objectives, and daily living skills and provision of a functional vocational evaluation if determined appropriate. Coordinated activities. Coordinated activities are the task for the student to complete that will assist them in learning the skills and knowledge associated with each annual transition goal. So you want to consider all the activities that the student might benefit from or participate in to achieve each annual goal. And the coordinated activities must be updated annually as well. And this PowerPoint will be posted in EdPlan on the secondary transition webpage, and there is a link here to a coordinated activities handout. So once you've determined your goals, you can use this, and it may give you some ideas to how to break down those goals into different steps. Coordinated activities can take place at school, home, or in the community, and the people responsible may include the student, parent, and other family members, special education teachers, general education teachers, counselor, or other school staff. And it may include other outside agencies such as a VR counselor or a pre-ed specialist, a pre-employment transition specialist. But just remember that the ultimate responsibility to providing transition services and coordinated activities is on the district. A great way to encourage family involvement is to discuss with parents what coordinated activities they might be responsible for. So a common one that we see here is getting that driver's license. Could be something like during that junior or senior year, visiting the disability support services at a local college, helping the student complete the FAFSA. So those are just some ideas of how parents you know, can help out with those coordinated activities. So let's think back to Dawson. So remember, Dawson's education training annual goal was that after receiving instruction in choice making and self-awareness, Dawson will communicate his choices and feelings using PECs or with a physical gesture without verbal prompting 8 out of 10 opportunities. So some tasks or activities that will help him achieve that annual education training goal could be things like he's going to indicate how he's feeling using a daily check-in. This can be done online or in person, whatever school looks like for him right now. He could make daily lunch choices at school, make a choice for dinner at home at least once a week, visit a local restaurant and gesture or use PECs to make a food choice, attend several activities in the community or at school to be able to make informed choices. Okay, now we're going to talk about some other requirements in the transition planning, and some of these are Oklahoma requirements. So students entering the 9th grade are automatically enrolled in the college preparatory work-ready curriculum track. So to opt out of the college preparatory work-ready curriculum for the core curriculum track, parents must complete a form provided by the school, and this form is placed in the student's cumulative folder, and you will indicate that in the transition plan if they are taking the core track. And then we would expect that course of study to either align with the college preparatory work-ready curriculum or the core curriculum track. Another important part of transition planning is vocational education. So utilizing the student's post-secondary goals, the IEP team must consider and provide information regarding vocational education, which can include things like career technology programs, work study programs, school-based training, community-based job experiences, and high school vocational education courses. Of course, depending on where you live and what you have access to, this may differ, but make sure you're collaborating with your local career technology programs and your Department of Rehabilitation Services, your vocational rehabilitation counselors, to see what might be available in your area. So every student should have a referral form sent to DRS around the age of 15 and a half. This can be sent to the DR office, or some vocational rehabilitation counselors prefer to come and pick up those referrals. So whatever works for your counselor and your school, but make sure that we are referring our students for Department of Rehabilitation Services. You do need to complete a consent for release of confidential information. So that must be signed by the parent or the student if age 18. And again, that's required before you invite outside agencies to participate in the IEP meeting as well. Encourage your parents and students to complete that DRS application. The referral is just the first step. So we want to remind them of possible services that are available, and you can reach out to your vocational rehabilitation counselor. There are some brochures that are available. If you're new to transition or you're new to the secondary and you're not sure, you know, contact us for help. We can get you in contact with your VR counselor and make sure that you're referring your students. Transfer of rights. By age 17, students and parents must be informed about the age of majority and the transfer of the parents' rights to the student upon the student turning 18 years of age. When the student reaches the age of majority, the notification of meeting will be addressed to the student, and a copy will be provided to the parents. So the local educational agency should inform parents of their option to seek legal advice if they plan to seek guardianship and continue making all or part of the decisions for their student upon the student reaching the age of majority. If you are working with students with more significant support needs, we need to be starting those conversations early. So you have to do it by age 17, but start it as early as possible, because you know it's a very serious guardianship is a very serious. There are different levels of it. It is a court proceeding. There are fees involved. So we want to make sure that, you know, our parents have time to process it and be informed. Don't just wait till right before that, you know, 17th birthday. Start those conversations early. All right, receipt of a regular high school diploma or aging out. So the school district's obligation to provide special education services ends when the student meets the local educational agency and state requirements that apply to all students for the receipt of a regular high school diploma, or when the student turns 22 years of age. However, they may finish the school year. So if they turn 22 during the year, they can finish the year. Although this is considered a change of placement, a reevaluation is not required. We expect that, you know, students that age out, that to be a very, very small percentage of students. Our goal is that our students are receiving a regular high school diploma. So prior to graduation and the discontinuation of special education services, the LEA must provide the parent and or student with written notice that the LEA's obligation to provide special education services ends when the student obtains a regular high school diploma or reaches maximum age. In addition to that written notice, the district must also complete a summary of performance. This needs to include the academic achievement and functional performance of the student, so recent evaluation data, grades, cumulative grade point averages, and progress made towards post-secondary goals. Many times when we are reviewing files and we look at those summary of performances, we see the grades, and that's about it. So we want to make sure that we are noting progress made towards the post-secondary goals, and also recommendations for assisting the student in meeting his or her post-secondary goals. So list any activities, accommodations, assistive technology, and strategies that will enable the student to be successful after high school. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of assistive technology. Don't wait until the student's about to graduate. Assistive technology is crucial. You can reach out to Able Tech if you need assistance with assistive technology and you're determining what may be appropriate for your students. So reach out to Able Tech. Okay, that brings us to the end of the required components for secondary transition planning. I know this was a lot of information in a short time. Here is my contact information. You can email me at lori.chestnut@sde.ok.gov, and there's no T in the middle of my name, so it's just like it's spelled on the screen, or call me at 405-521-4802. If you have just some general questions about IDEA, you can also call our Special Education Services main line, and that number is 405-521-3351. I do want to tell you about some upcoming transition PD. We do have a Developing a Compliant Secondary Transition Plan and Ed Plan webinar on September 24th at 10 a.m. That webinar will be recorded and posted in EdPlan on the state tab, as well as on the OSDE website on the secondary transition page. We also have a session coming up on ICAP and the IEP Secondary Transition Plan on September 28th at 10 a.m. at the Oklahoma Transition Institute. We have several trainings coming up this fall and spring through our contract with the OU0 Center, and topics will include secondary transition assessment, transition planning for students with mild moderate needs and severe profound needs, and student involvement. The best way to keep up with all of the PD that we have in secondary transition is to sign up for the listserv at the Oklahoma State Department of Education Special Education main page. There's a place where you can type in your email and sign up for our newsletter. So here's some more information about the Oklahoma Transition Institute that will be held virtually this year, September 28th through the 30th. It is free registration. There will be 5 sessions daily, 3 in English and 2 in Spanish. And you can use pre-approved Project 613 funds available for subs. You do need to register as soon as possible because registration's closing very soon. So visit the Oklahoma Transition Council webpage located on the OU0 Center. And there's also a full agenda and more details on that page. In addition to those upcoming trainings, we do have transition resources available on the webpage on the secondary transition page. We also have several secondary transition modules in Pepper, so you can work at your own pace. There's one on secondary transition indicator 13 requirements that's very much like this webinar, goes into a little bit more detail and you can work at your own pace. There's transition assessments for mild, moderate, and severe profound. There's one on interagency collaboration and one on student involvement. So lots of resources for transition located in Pepper. You can also visit the OU0 Center, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition, or PACER websites. Those are 3 of my favorites. So hopefully you can check those out. Okay, so think about how this information will help you to develop better secondary transition plans, and also what questions you still have about secondary transition planning. Feel free to email me if you have additional questions that you need help with. Thank you so much for your time today. Take care.